There we go.
So overrated.
What? What? Being on time is overrated?
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess on YouTube it kind of is because it never kicks in right away. It's always like 10 seconds. But yeah, we're just going to get going here. Hey, everybody out there in YouTube land and Facebook land and Twitter land. Yeah, we're simulcasting to all of those lovely platforms. This is week 3 of Scare-a-Thon 2021. I am your host, Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat, and I've got a bug or something in my throat. Could be a snake. But yeah, we are here. We're going to be doing a special Hammerland edition now of Scare-a-Thon 2021. For those of you who are maybe unfamiliar, for the last almost year, for 9 months and counting, we're going to give birth to a Dracula Frankenstein baby. AC, Aaron Christensen of Horror 101 with Dr. AC and I have been doing a journey through the Hammer films of Dracula and Frankenstein from, going all the way back to the 50s. We're doing the complete run. But for this episode, this listener or viewer requested episode by one John Leggett, we are going to be looking at 1964's The Gorgon, directed by Terence Fisher, who did a lot of the Hammer films that we've talked about already. So before we get all into that, let's welcome Aaron. Hello. Let's welcome John Kitley of Kitley's Krypt. And we have a special guest, Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of the Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions. How you doing, Mark?
You really need to start locking that back door. I just keep coming in and you just...
You're like Michael Myers in that way. You just keep any opening.
That's right.
But before we launch into it, let's talk about why we're doing what we're doing and what exactly it is we're doing. All 5 Friday nights of October, we are here at 7:30 p.m. Central talking about horror movies. And all of this is in benefit of Scare-a-Thon, which is an 11-year tradition that Aaron has kept up, where he watches as many scary movies as he can during the month of October and raises money for a good cause. And this year it is the Albany Park Theater Project, which, let me get my fancy banners going here. You can find out the information right down below if you want to donate to them. But before we just ask you to give money to an organization, what is Albany Park Theater Project, you may be wondering? Aaron, why don't you give us a few words about the Albany Park Theater Project?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. The Albany Park Theater Project is a teen-based ensemble theater where they create original works, and all of the performances are done by the teen ensemble, and but the Albany Park Theater Project is more than just a theater. They do a lot of community outreach. They do tutoring. They do college prep. They're just a pretty great organization, and I'm really we're actually going to have an interview sequence that we did. I conducted a series of interviews with them, with some ensemble members and staff, and we're going to have that video next week, edited by one Mr. John Pata. So I'm very, very excited to release that. And anyway, yeah. So I'm really thrilled that we're all here, and we're going to be talking about this. And it's crazy that we're already halfway through the month.
Yeah, I just want to stop and mention John Pata, co-director of Dead Weight, the film that brought you, me, and Mark together that fateful
correct.
night years ago at the Wisconsin Horror Festival at the time. Is that was the Time Community?
That was Time Theater, yep.
Historic Time Community Theater in downtown Oshkosh, which we had our Horror Fest last weekend. We brought a new Horror Fest, the Sawdust City Fright Fest, and I got to actually talk to Mr. John Pata. He actually stopped by, got a rare Pata sighting because he's so busy. We talked to the stylist. We talked about a couple of projects he's been involved in, as well as a new project. I think it was Daniel Del Purgatorio's new one,
he
was talking about, which I am very excited to see. I loved Other, and I can't wait to see what Gorefest his Bug Bites brings up. So
yeah. All right, well, yeah, that very exciting stuff. And yeah, so when the interviews go up, yeah, definitely let us know. We'll link
Absolutely.
to it down below.
Cool.
All right, well, so let's talk about the Gorgon. This is I didn't know what to make of this movie going in, but I was kind of blown away by the end of it. First of all, I'm only used to seeing Christopher Lee play villains in movies. He's the hero of this movie, wearing this amazing like Mark Twain beard. I don't know what was going, or the mustache. I'm not sure what was going on there, but damn. Kitley,
Yes.
do you want to set this up for us? You want to encapsulate the Gorgon? Am I saying it right? Is it Gorgon or Gorgon, or how do you guys say it?
Yes.
Excellent.
It starts out in a small village, and there's this mysteriously haunted castle that nobody's supposed to go by because it has bad things happen to it. And a bohemian artist that lives there, who's apparently got a local girl pregnant, goes to talk to the father to say that he's going to do the right thing. And he ends up, actually his girlfriend comes running after him, and she ends up literally turning to stone. So then the boyfriend is found hanging later, whether by his own hand or somebody else's, we don't know. So that kind of starts the ball rolling as far as this mystery of this castle and what's going on, and that there's a legend of one of the Gorgon sisters. You have Medusa, don't remember the other one, and then Megara, who possibly has come back, and this is from the Greek mythology, the Gorgons, or Peter Cushing is one of the doctors in the town. Everybody there seems to be covering up something. And the brother or the father of the son that was found hanged comes to investigate. He's getting no help. And it's just it's like one of those stories where there's this hidden secret in a small town that nobody wants to talk about. And an outsider comes in that tries to solve the mystery and gets no help, and usually ends up getting killed for his efforts. But it's one of the Hammer ones that's not usually well promoted because it's not a vampire, it's not a Frankenstein film. But you got Cushing and Lee, you got Barbara Shelley, you got an amazing cast. Patrick Troughton is in there. It's one of Hammer's. It's just one of those that it's wonderful to watch.
Very much so, and even though it's not one of their big brand name hitters like a Vampires or a Frankenstein, it felt very much in the vein of those movies. You've got the big kind of creepy castle, you've got the scared townspeople and all that. It's very, tropey is the wrong word, but it just felt like they were able to very easily slot a Gorgon into that kind of a narrative mold. And I think it works really well, especially for a creature that doesn't have, any real personality. She doesn't talk except for the version of her that does, and we can get into that in a little bit. But I want to start off by kind of what we always do at the beginning of these, what was your first encounter with the Gorgon? Where did this come in your horror watching habits, or your Hammer filmography in specific? Jump right in, John. You go.
For me, it was just once you get into Hammer, you start trying to find and see everything that they did. So I don't know if I caught it on TV possibly. I know it didn't come out on video it did come out on video. I think MCA put it out, so it was readily available. And again, when you're on a Hammer kick, you literally will find anything that they had. And with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, it's a must. So it was many years ago, but it's still a fun movie.
Very much. How about you, Mark, as our guest?
Well, I was introduced to Hammer by a friend of mine, Doc. We call him Doc. He's big into British TV, Doctor Who and all that. And he introduced me to Hammer horror. My dad watched some, but at the time I never realized that was Hammer horror. He just this old Gothic style. So for me, when my friend introduced me to it, then he would, when he got it on DVD, he'd give me the VHS tapes. So I have a number of Hammer horror VHS tapes. And while I didn't mass consume it, it's always one of those where I'll watch it and I just get engrossed in it because of the talent. I mean, horror, especially at this time, at least for me, experience, you got a lot of B movie type stuff. And then you get this stuff, which is, higher caliber acting than you expect maybe in a horror film like this, with set pieces that are, I'm a big visual guy, and the visuals are just like, man, and you get some intriguing stories that, like here with the Gorgon, where the monster or whatever really, if you're paying attention, isn't like the full story. It's like the main story, but there's a number of subplots that go on in this that they're making as subtle a statement as they can, because it is British, so it is dry, but at the same time there's some subtle states in here, because this is taking place in what, 1918?
Early 1900s.
Early 1900s, I think, or 1910 maybe, but just before World War One. But they it's one of those, they start talking about it's a police state, how you can see you've got the German police force in here, so you got kind of that political subtext going on and statements, and then you've got the whole idea of small towns keeping secrets. If you lived in a small town or even experienced it, they usually have that dark secret or whatever, and that's explored in here. So yeah, I saw this later on in my Hammer watching. I went through a lot of the vampire Van Helsing stuff and the that type of thing. But yeah, I dig this film.
Cool. Before we get to you, AC, I just want to bring up our number one fan, Big Swifty 500, is in the house, saying your number one fan is in the house. So thank you. Welcome. Pull up I hope you have a comfy seat, and there are no snakes nearby. That would be unpleasant. So AC, tell me about what do you make of the Gorgon?
Well, it's similar to Mark and John. I definitely saw this later in my Hammer. I'd seen the Hammer Frankensteins and Draculas at this point. And, it was a matter of just kind of being a completist and wanting to track them down. And after watching it, you just kind of go, well, why doesn't this one get more love? And honestly, I think the answer is there's just such a wealth of riches, in the Hammer vaults that you can't. It's hard to prioritize. I told John after I watched this most recent one, I think this may in fact be one of my favorite Christopher Lee Hammer performances, just because he is playing against type so much. It's like the first time many people will have seen him playing character, where he's affecting a voice and he's affecting a posture. And again, he's playing kind of like the scruffy hero, and throwing his weight around, and just kind of, like we're used to seeing Lee as kind of the stately gentleman, stiff upper lip and, kind of imposing. Here, he's just kind of like this like, Rottweiler in a butcher shop, just kind of like just throwing things around and be like, you know what, you're not going to cause, you're not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. And when it's Christopher Lee, all 6'5" of him, you kind of believe him.
Especially there's that scene towards the end where the German cops are busting through the house trying to find the people they're trying to find, and Christopher Lee isn't having any of it. He's like going up the stairs, he stops, turns around, he just kind of shoves these two cops and they fall like bowling pins. He totally has like superhuman Frankenstein strength in this movie, and I love it. But yeah, there's a looseness to it, to his performance, that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was like, wow, why wasn't this his thing?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a much better Professor.
Professor Meister.
Meister, yeah.
Meister, yeah.
Than Dracula, frankly.
And let's not forget, we see Troughton as a bad guy.
Yeah.
In here, which most people's introduction to him was Doctor Who, which he wouldn't actually do for 2 years until he got the Who gig. Right. So many people, that's the first time to see him. So they're used to seeing him being a good guy. So then you look at his a little bit earlier work, and here he's just being, a really kind of just a nasty police guy. It's just, it's great because he's such a wonderful actor that he's so into it. But at the same time, you're like, Doctor, what's going on?
Well, one person we haven't really talked about is Peter Cushing.
Right.
I was not. This whole movie is full of like these performance surprises, because he kind of plays the head of the scared townspeople.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, as it goes on, you realize that he's a lot more in control, or he professes to be more in control and more knowledgeable of the situation than he lets on at the beginning. But he's when Heights, the brother of Bruno, who's the artist, gets killed. His kind of professor, brother, comes to town looking after his sibling. He gets the kind of the cold shoulder, the wall, the warning, the was it the Molotov cocktail like thrown into the into his hotel, and then the angry people storming in. But he runs up against this the guy who's running this institution, this Peter Cushing, and his lovely assistant. It's creepy and weird to see Peter Cushing off his game like that, because I'm used to seeing him as either the very composed Van Helsing, very brave guy, or the kind of devious and sneaky and sinister Dr. Frankenstein. This is kind of somewhere in between. It's more Frankenstein than any of them. But it was a lot of fun. One thing I noticed is the turning to stone effect when people actually do see the Medusa creature. It starts off as these welts that kind of form on the head, these raised welts with the hole in the middle, and I immediately thought of Barbara Steele in Black Sunday. Black Sunday, with the mask. It was. I don't know if there was any inspiration there, between the films, but it was very striking. That's a great effect. I don't know why it's not used more in movies today.
Well, and honestly, I mean, there's no real kind of, you don't see what the cause of that is. Why do they have those welts start before the petrification takes place? But again, I think it's really striking because it's something that's immediate. It's like they're not immediately getting hit with the gray paintbrush.
Well, and that's something that I hadn't seen before. I'm not that up on my Medusa mythology or my Medusa movies. I think I saw Clash of the Titans when I was way too young. But I'm used to the idea of like you see someone and then you see a Gorgon and then you turn to stone, and that's kind of it.
Right.
It's almost like there's the degrees to which you actually see the Gorgon. Like our hero catches her reflection in, I think, water and a mirror.
Pond.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes him horribly sick, and it takes him a while to kind of get over it. But then even if you look directly at her face, you don't immediately turn to stone. You kind of freak out. But as we see later, you can carry on entire conversations after running through a village and sit down and write a touching letter to your son.
A 4-page letter.
A 4-page letter.
Professor Heights is a badass. That guy.
He really is. One second, hold on. We've got some feedback here. We got a comment. Big Swifty, I agree. This film is the most underrated Hammer flick ever. The colors in the sets are amazing. It's totally obvious that the outdoor garden scenes are stage sets, but they work so well. I agree with that.
That's Bernard Robinson, their set designer.
Yep.
Extraordinaire.
That's something that, I don't know if this is a staple of Terence Fisher and who he worked with, but I was back to being drawn into the sets. Aaron, we've talked about this as the Hammer films go on later and later. They start losing some of that elaborate artistry in the set design. Though it was really nice to see that kind of pop up here and become its own character.
Yeah, this is definitely. I mean, it's everybody's hitting on all cylinders here.
Yeah.
Bernard Robinson's is right in. I agree, Big Swifty. I do think it's definitely Terence Fisher in his prime. He's delivering the goods. The lighting, I forget who did the cinematography on this. I think it's Michael Reed. But I just love like the kind of Bava-esque, like green shafts of light that we have here and there. I just think it's a gorgeous film, and it's very much an ensemble piece. Like it really is spread out. Michael Pascoe, who plays Paul, our ostensible lead, he doesn't show up until a half hour into the movie. And it really does just keep moving the focus from this character to that character. And I think Michael Goodleaf, who plays the professor, Paul's father, I think he's a terrific presence. And you actually you really miss him when he's gone. And it's a good thing that Christopher Lee comes in at that time, because it kind of passes the torch from him to Lee.
I think that's one of the highlights of Hammer is everybody in there is on spot, whether it's Patrick Troughton, who you got to realize is playing this bit part as the police inspector. Jack Watson is the orderly. I mean, he's been in quite a few British horror movies, usually playing the nasty villain. But everybody is spot on, and that's the beauty of Hammer, whether it's the amazing set designs or the cast. It's just, they're always fun to watch because of that.
I've almost gotten to the point where I take this. Oh, wait 1 second. Kind of got to get this. Yes, Baba S. Could have said it better. 3 thumbs up. 3 yellow thumbs up for the Giallo reference.
That's right. That's right.
But no, I've almost gotten to the point where I take for granted that these movies are going to look great and have amazing actors. For me, what really gets me is the story. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about this movie in particular is they keep going through heroic characters. They keep dying. So you've got, the brother, he goes missing. So the younger brother tells his professor, yeah, I'm off. I got to go back and find out what happened to my brother. And the father shows up and he's yelling at people in the court because they've all, to sweep this whole conspiracy under the rug, they've determined that, it was the young girl who found out she was pregnant. Her artist boyfriend, Bruno, couldn't take it. So he killed her and then he killed himself out of grief. And that's the official story. What about the body? What body? We've taken care of it, even though we, the audience, get to see that it's clearly been turned to stone as the cart is wheeled into the morgue and it hits something, a finger falls off. Yep. And I got to say, it's nice that they have the actual statuary when they pull back the covers or they open up the crypt and everything and you see the actual statue. But it's so effective on that gurney scene with the hand hanging down. It's just a white painted hand, but it's so well done that it looks like it's just soft stone, like calcium or something.
Yeah.
Well, they play on your expectations too, because you first think going through the heroes, you first think it might be about the young artist.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's heading to the castle. You're like, oh, okay, it's going to be this story. And all of a sudden, well, nope, it's not that, and you think you're going to get that confrontation between him and the dad. And then, okay, well, we see Peter Cushing and his character. And then his character says, oh, I know his father. And then you're like, oh, so he's going to stand up and these two are going to try to find out until you get to the court scene. And then he's like, no, there were bruises and it was him. And you're just like, dude,
agreed.
Dude, you're Cushing. You're supposed to be the good guy,
But he's really not. And by the time this movie's over, he gets his just desserts. But, sadly, this movie ends on a complete downer note.
Absolutely.
Because even though we've got our, spoilers, everybody, we've got our beheaded Gorgon. Let's step back a minute, because again, I don't know my mythology that well. Were the Gorgons evil, or were they just these creatures that had snakes for heads?
Well, I mean,
how can you not be evil? You have snakes in your hair.
That's prejudice, sir.
Well,
I will not deal with that on this show.
I was going to say, actually, Medusa was she was just minding her own business, and she became beloved by one of the gods. And so one of the goddesses punished her by turning her into a Gorgon. I actually don't know the mythology behind Megara, but Medusa was an innocent bystander. She got a raw deal. So
we all are.
Well, and that's the thing is I didn't even know about the sisters. So when they're talking about, when they first start talking about Megara, I'm like, was there a copyright thing? Why can't they just call her Medusa? But it turns out this is, the sister that survived, or the spirit that got away and went to hide in this decrepit castle.
Right. And I mean, honestly, I don't know. They could have been making this up. I haven't done my Greek mythology. So, but we have not yet talked about Barbara Shelley. And I think we must needs, because I mean, I love her in pretty much everything I see her do with Hammer, but this is really, she's terrific here. She's kind of your moral center, even though she turns out to be, spoiler, the villain.
Well, but is she the villain,
she's
or
she's an unwilling monster, right? She's an unwilling monster.
And we will talk about that for a second, but I just want to kind of get to this idea. Megara in this movie struck me as more of a Frankenstein character, because even though the spirit was taking possession of Carla in the village.
Mm.
And whenever there's a full moon, she kind of like shows up and, starts turning people to stone if they're drawn to her castle or whatever. I never got the sense that there was, malevolence to it. I mean, maybe because she seems to be, she's snarling and she's got the hissing snakes and everything, but maybe that's just, the creature she was. She's like, leave me alone. I'm trying to stand here in this corner of my castle.
Well, I think your werewolf comparison is actually pretty apt. It's a curse. She is cursed.
But I do think that they are drawn towards the castle.
Mm.
Now, here, let's see. Wait a second. I don't understand this one. She plays like Elle. I don't know. I don't. That one slipped right past me, Swifty. What does that mean? She plays like Elle. Unless it's like he's affecting like a Cockney accent. She plays like Elle. Right. Which I would agree.
If that just happened, I want that to have happened.
Yeah.
All right. So, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think one of the elements that may cause this film from being as highly regarded as some of their other more popular ones is because, I mean, let's face it, the fake snakes and they used a different actress is god awful. It is not that effective. And even worse, the fact that Barbara Shelley told them she wouldn't mind having real snakes if they made a headdress.
Right.
She would have done that.
She was supposed to, it was designed for her to play a dual role. She was supposed to play both the monster and Carla. And they said, we just don't have the technology for the makeup, et cetera, et cetera. Don't have the time, don't have the budget. So they just hired Prudence Hyman to play the Megara character. But I'm going to actually go the other way, and I'm going to be like, I don't think it's that bad, because you often hear that, yes, it completely undoes the movie. And I'm like, I've seen some pretty terrible movies at this point in terms of effects. By the mid 60s, we'd seen a lot of cheese come across the screen. And so, if you can't do your suspension of disbelief at this point, time to hang up the hat.
I think there's just one. There's just one like cut or shot, I think, where the snakes look really bad. It's when I think after the head's been cut off and you see them kind of like pop back into the head.
Yeah.
That doesn't look so great. But then it's followed with this kind of cool face melting scene where her green skin reveals the beautiful Carla underneath.
Yeah.
But I think up till that point, and you brought this up earlier, AC, it was really effective with, the lighting effects, because when she's hanging out in the shadows and she's gradually reveals herself, you can barely tell that she's got snakes around her head. Right. And that might be, I think if this movie were done today, they'd be like 17 feet tall and like winding around, hissing and spitting stuff. I think they actually did that in that.
I was going to say, I remember
the Titans.
The remake Clash of the Titans is a seriously CG Medusa there.
Yeah.
Yikes. So let's talk about Barbara Shelley. Where else? You guys are all big fans. Where else would I have seen her?
Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Remember, she's the one who she plays the sister, and she is transformed. There's the light bulb.
It has the wonderful staking sequence by the monks as they hold her down.
Yes.
She was also in Rasputin the Mad Monk.
Right.
Shadow of the Cat.
She's the only good thing about Shadow of the Cat.
Andre Morell is in that too.
She's the only good thing about Shadow of the
Frida
Cat.
Jackson is in that.
Only good thing about Shadow.
She was also in an early British film called Catgirl.
Only good thing about Catwoman.
Oh my God!
Wow.
And yet,
no. I actually
not as good as the snakes in this film.
Well, actually, she's also in. Is it? No, that's Hazel Court that's in Dr. Blood's coffin, right?
Yeah, that's Hazel Court.
Okay, so we've got a little clarity here. She was so good. She plays like a motherly figure, and it's heartbreaking. Yes.
Yes.
Just a great performance. Yeah.
Agreed. And that is all in one letter, L. She plays like L.
Yes. But yeah, the one kind of problem I had, and it wasn't with her performance, it was with the character, but Paul, who's the second hero, the avenging brother, the one who's come to investigate, the disappearance, he, like, all of a sudden in the middle of this movie, they're in love. Like, this was the fastest brewing romance I think I've ever seen in a movie. I don't know what was going on there.
Well, I'm a guy and you're a girl, and so therefore we're in love.
It could have something to do with the fact that she's who she is and she has that allure to her. I mean, obviously Cushing had interests, whether it was scientific or otherwise. But I also wanted to point out that I don't think I would consider everybody in that village evil. They were just hiding their secret, and they would do whatever they had to do to protect that. So I don't think the police, the Patrick Troughton, or even Cushing, maybe Cushing, but I think it was all done more towards to hide their secret as opposed to inherently evil.
Why are they hiding the secret though? Like, why isn't this like a thing that they want to have discovered? I mean, there's a monster in our midst. It seems like they're kind of embarrassed by it, and which is odd. It's like, it's like that little skeleton we have in the closet where we have this person who turns people into stone. So sorry, it's really ruining our tourist trade.
Well, that is kind of a good point. I mean, they bring up the fact that there have been 5 unsolved murders or disappearances in the last 7 years, and that's actually something I want to bring up the panel because I couldn't quite figure this out. So Carla is the vessel for Medusa. It's established that she moved to the village in like 1903 or something like that, or 1900.
6, yeah.
Okay, and I thought I heard a line of dialogue that she had died. Is that right? Or how did she get possessed by the spirit? Like, what's the connection there? Because she wasn't always Megara.
Or did she just appear when she did? They don't really clarify that, I don't believe.
There's a lot of dialogue, though, when I think it was when Cushing was explaining something, or maybe someone was going through the records and they were trying to piece it together. But there was some kind of connection that I feel like
when she appeared in the town. Was when the murder started. But in terms
was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because Cushing was even teaching Carla the legend.
Right.
Right, but she had amnesia or something. Like there was something was going on with her mind.
But that's the whole thing is, did she have amnesia or did she just appear the same time the spirit did?
I don't know, because I thought that the spirit had moved into the castle and was waiting for a vessel. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Like where did she come from, and how did Megara get from Greece to like this small town in Germany? I mean, I guess she had enough time to walk or swim.
You're putting more thought into this than any of the screenwriters.
Well, actually, that's a good segue because John Gilling, who later directed Plague of the Zombies and The Reptile, he did the script for this one, although apparently it was tinkered with quite a bit by producer Anthony Hines.
Yeah.
And to the point that Gilling, pretty much like disowned his
hated it.
He said they just ruined my movie. It could have been a great movie and they ruined it. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm curious to hear what they ruined, because I kind of liked the way it panned out.
Yeah.
But Gilling had no love for the script on this one. But he ended up turning out some good stuff with Hammer as well.
So yeah, no clue what what was changed or altered?
Not sure what. I think I don't remember if I did know, I've forgotten.
Well. Yeah, I got to look that up now to see if I can find out, because I think this is for all my nitpicking about the weird origin of Carla / Megara, I love this movie, especially at the end. I mentioned that kind of like everybody dies except for Christopher Lee, but Paul, when he his last moments, he's like choking and turning to stone. And again, I'm going to go with the light and the makeup. It almost gives this feeling like you're watching his body turn to stone. Even you can almost see his eyes kind of like glassing over in the moonlight. It's horrifying. And then you're left with Christopher Lee just kind of like broken and freaked out. Like, I was at college grading papers like 2 days ago.
Well, I think, I mean, it's also fun. It's a really kind of wing-ding ending in terms of, you know, Cushing racing to the castle and everybody's converging on the castle at once. And then you have that big, you know, saber versus candelabra duel in which you get a really good look at Peter Cushing's stuntman at one point. I don't know if anybody else saw it. That is not Peter Cushing. And there's Peter Cushing again.
I totally missed that. I think I was hung up on, I think I was trying to look at the candelabra because I was convinced that it was alternately a candelabra and a coat rack.
Could have been.
Yeah.
They're all about, you know, multifunctional.
Yeah.
Or it could have been Michael. It could have been Michael Ripper.
That's right. That's right. Because
he's that good. He could appear in anything. He could have been the candelabra.
He could have been.
Phantom of the Candelabra. No, that wouldn't work at all. What am I missing here? I had something that I wanted to talk about. Except for my Friday the 13th reference, of course.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do. And
I was waiting. I'm like, where? Why?
I was waiting for him to find the bottle of J&B.
This is a Hammer movie. You're not going to get me. Wait, was there one in here?
I'm not going to tell you.
It was, but this is like, I don't know how old J&B Scotch is, but this is 1910. Have they been around that long?
Sure.
Like they're actually paying attention to brands of the 1900s.
I'm just saying, I'm going to lose my mind if there was actually a bottle of J&B in here and I missed it. But
I can't wait for that email. You lied. It's not in there.
But before we get to our next comment, I do want to mention the Friday the 13th connection. The very beginning where our young pregnant girlfriend, whose name was Sasha, yes. Just as I laid eyes on it, you said it. She runs out and Bruno goes after her. Or she goes after him.
Yeah, he's going to meet the father.
He's like, I've got to go tell your dad so I can do the right thing. She's like, no, he's going to kill you. He's like, I must do it. But she's running through the forest and she kind of sees this figure in the shadows who you get the feeling is kind of like watching her and then turns away and swiftly darts away. That reminded me of Friday the 13th from 1980 when Ned is walking through the woods and he sees the cabin, and in the distance you see what turns out to be Mrs. Voorhees watching him and then turning and walking into the cabin. He's like, hey, wait up, hello. And then he goes in, and then next time we see him, he's in a bunk. So once again, Hammer Films traveling forward into the future to rip off the great Friday the 13th. So what do we have now? I love both Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing being in this, but if you notice, I think they're only both in one small scene together. I may be wrong, but what a scene. Such amazing actors. Yes, this is the heat of the Hammer Films. You got the two titans of acting, and they share one, little bit memorable kind of exchange. Yeah.
Well, scheduling, they were in demand. So, I mean, and BBC, the British, they don't exactly have the talent pool, especially back then, that Hollywood may have had, or the resources for it. So that's why a lot of these actors did show up in many of these, especially the TV shows. I mean, that's why you got so many actors. And the TV shows had short runs, which, God bless them, people finally found that format. And thank you for the very short episode TV series, because they've got the same crew, at least if not in front of the camera, behind the camera, working on multiple projects at the same time. So, maybe that could be why they didn't have the scheduling, is because either crew or cast or both, because of schedule, they couldn't get them both on the screen at the same time. So, except for the one scene.
Well, on that note, I want to ask, do you guys know if Christopher Lee and or Peter Cushing have ever played twins in a movie?
No,
but now I want that movie now.
Me too, because I love them. And what better way to admire an actor than to see them twice, in the same movie playing, you could have like an evil Peter Cushing versus a good Peter Cushing and vice versa. I'm just speculating here. I'm running on way too little sleep. I almost said way too little streep.
Yeah.
Which could be like a podcast where Meryl Streep talks about like her hallucinations from being sleep deprived. I would totally listen to that.
No, you wouldn't.
I would. She's an amazing. She's the Peter Cushing of our day.
Peter Cushing of our day. Well, you find folks are far more versed than I, but I want to go back to what you were asking about why the village would keep this a secret.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might go back to a few of the comments, and again, I might be making a lake out of a puddle, but of them talking about the police state and everything. If we're talking early 1900s in this area that's just on the verge of, say, war, because if they're just a year before war and, you know, the powers that be are clamping down, they might are trying to keep this a secret that these murders are happening for some strange reason, to try to avoid attracting the attention of, say, government officials, because we've just got mostly local cops. The judge is just fine with, yeah, the guy who hung himself, he murdered all 7 people over the last 5 years. I'm good with this.
Right.
You know,
case closed.
Right. Because by doing that, then if their stuff is being reviewed by, and again, I'm just speculating, but if it's being in this era that they're in, it's being reviewed by, say, the government, by higher ups, by like the whatever federal government or whatever, the empire, they don't want it that attention because it might bring more heat to them too. Well,
Lee even mentions that, or Meister, you know, his character mentions that he has a brother who is, you know, like higher up in the government, and you know, you wouldn't want me to make that call now, would you?
Right.
That's a very interesting point. And if you were to set this movie like 20 years later, you could almost have like Medusa Nazis.
Medusa Nazis.
You know,
well, where's that movie? Now,
the man was apparently into the occult. So
that
podcast
I would definitely listen to.
Oh my Lord. I just got it. Hitler had his scientists learn how to do early cloning. And so they took the Gorgon's DNA and they replicated an army of Medusas to send out into the field to turn the enemy into stone. To which then Hitler makes a garden of his enemies, a stone garden of his enemies.
That's twisted. I love it.
That's why all the SS had blonde hair, because they just got a glimpse of Medusa. Just a peek. Turn their hair white.
Look at her through this running water.
that was another thing we haven't really talked about. You know, we talked a bit about the makeup on Medusa and those kind of like dodgy snakes, but the makeup on the Paul character, as he, you know, becomes sick from having glimpsed, you know, Medusa through the reflection, we go from seeing him as being this, you know, I don't know if was he a law student or something at college, but he was like a young, you know, kind of college kid. But he ages very quickly with the kind of the sunken cheeks and the gray skin, and that his hair is almost silver. You know, it takes on this really crazy stone cast that he keeps for the rest of the film until the rest of him turns into stone. But it's so effective and transformative. You know, that's one of the things I like about this film so much is the characters really go through stuff. Not only can you not tell who you're supposed to, you know, believe in because they all keep dying or turning into like monsters, but the characters that we do see, the people who would be heroes, are put through such paces that by the time they're turned to stone, it's almost a mercy.
Yeah, even the dad, the professor, when he's slowly turning as he's writing the letters, the effects on his hands and the shadowing and stuff, really, really effective. And that was all Roy Ashton, the makeup guy for Hammer, the later day guy.
And that's something that, you know, we were kind of talking before the show. Mark and I were making fun of the new Halloween movie, and you know, we won't get into that. But I just want to say you can have a horror movie or a creature feature. It doesn't have to all be like over the top scares and gore. It can be stuff that's kind of just, you know, chilling. The idea of you want to send this letter of warning to your son before you turn into stone. It's sad, it's weird looking, but you also get the feeling of, you know, this kind of horrific desperation in him wanting to be able to complete this mission. That's way more effective than any, you know, jump scare or, you know, gallons of blood you could splash across the screen.
Well, and I think you're really tapping into what horror is. I mean, that is a horror idea. You know, the idea of I'm turning to stone and I'm trying to communicate, and you know, it's getting harder, literally harder and harder to do so. I mean, I think that's kind of, you know, it's not the terror of a monster chasing you, it's the horror of what's happening within you.
Yeah.
But being very British about it and going, I'm still going to compose this letter with a pen and ink, and it's really good penmanship until that last line.
I was saying that too. I'm like, oh, he's going to write a letter. Like, oh, wait, he's got to dip that in the inkwell. This is going to take some time. And then they show the pages, and it's not like it's, you know, scrawler. It's perfectly like, except for that little.
And I think you're right. I think that actually would have been a really nice touch, is if the last page would have been really jagged and even labored.
Even the fly, when he was writing on the chalkboard, I mean, he could barely hold that together, and that was just half a sentence.
What I love about Hammer horror and early horror, but especially some of the, like in here, the transformative scenes. And this is a get off my lawn moment. Don't get me wrong. Some of this CGI and special effects makeups they have nowadays in horror films are great, and they like to show a lot of it on screen. But the creative editing that they use in films, especially with Hammer horror, when you're doing the transformations or the thinking about what actually went into setting up the face melting scene, while it is a bit, you look at that and you realize they're doing this on film in camera,
right.
You know, and just like his transformation stuff, it's still effective though. Of we see him in one form, we cut away to the Gorgon, we see him in another form, now he's pastier and turning more, you know, you cut away to something else, and then you've got that music as well, and all those elements are just as effective, if not more, than say seeing him completely just dissolve, you know, through dissolves, changing, like, you know, Wolfman from Washington DC, you know, you know, that type of transformation. It's almost more effective cutting away and coming back, because you're like, holy crap, you know, wow, he's really changed.
Well, that's an interesting point, Mark, because you're getting that perfect balance of the audience being asked to use their imagination and also showing them a little bit. Because when you're watching, you know, the cutaways, you're kind of wondering what am I not seeing? What's happening in between? I haven't really thought about that.
Well, I feel like this is, I mean, as I was writing my review for this, I mean, it really is kind of a melodrama in the best possible sense. You know, like we have this kind of fairy tale type story that's being told, and these kind of broad characters that are being portrayed, and they're almost archetypes, you know, each one of them, but there's a little nuance within it. And you know, like it does come to a very sad, almost a romantic ending, you know, in that, like, it takes us on that big arc, and then, you know, the catharsis happens at the end where everybody's dead except for, you know, our one lone person who came in halfway through the movie, you know.
Yeah, and he does come in like a wrecking ball. We talked a little bit about that beforehand, but he really does represent, more so than Paul and his father, who are these kind of outsiders, are kind of coming in and trying to be respectful of the town and the customs. They don't really flip out. I mean, when you've got this firebomb thrown in, and then you've got angry villagers showing up at your doorstep, you know, did they do that with Christopher Lee's character? I can't remember. He got into it with them.
He tells them, he's like, you shouldn't try that with me.
Right. But it's like he comes in, he's like, he's not having any of this nonsense, and he'll do whatever he can to push people away, whether, you know, intellectually or physically, as we saw. So you have all these different great approaches and different types of characters. So even more than just having archetypes, you say, okay, what if we put this character in this situation and then cross it out with this other character, completely different reactions. And this movie is like, it's like an hour and 23 minutes long, but it feels like such a full. You said it's speedy. You're in and you're out, but it does feel like a really hearty meal at the end of it.
Yeah. I was surprised. I guess by that I meant I was surprised at how short the running time was, considering how much ground gets covered.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last points on the Gorgon?
I would say, even though I know it's based off of the mythology and how Harryhausen did Clash of the Titans, I wouldn't doubt that he may have at least borrowed a little from this film in some ways of how he handles the Gorgon, as far as like there's a scene from The Pillar, like where she's kind of moving amongst the pillar in the castle near the end, that flashed me to Clash of the Titans when you have the Gorgon moving, you know, through the pillar and you don't exactly get to see her all. I understand those are common film elements, but just for me, there are a lot of similarities in some of those scenes when we get with the Gorgon in this with what we saw in Clash of the Titans before we get to see the full reveal of the Medusa in there. So, you know, I could see where this may have, you know, at least give an inkling to how he may want to handle it, but I got some of those flashbacks for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised there aren't more tellings of this story. You know, the idea of someone who turns people to stone. Is Mill of the Stone Women, is it in any way kind of Gorgon-esque?
I don't believe so. It's been quite a while since I've seen that, but I think the guy's turning people like House of Wax type.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, but again, it's been there's no Medusa, no Gorgon in there.
Yeah. Well, you know, and with this film too, what I liked is they play off in the beginning that the townsfolk are using the Gorgon for possibly some other nefarious purposes as well. You know, but with the Gorgon character, yeah, I'm surprised we don't get more of this, because it'd be an interesting exploration just like this on how this small town may be using this creature as an excuse to do some nasty things, but also, you know, a town using that to their own advantage. But two, just the idea of, you know, vanity or looking at someone, you know, gazing upon someone too long, and that effect that it has on you. We don't actually see as many stories even nowadays that you would think you could do a lot with this, especially social commentary.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I'm thinking you could update this by having a Medusa app that, you know, it's so attractive to people, but it turns them to stone.
There's no repeat use on that, so it's not a.
No, it's more of like the Facebook thing of don't reveal this picture, and so you state, you know, do the gimmick of, if you reveal this picture, you'll turn to stone within 24 hours, and so people start daring themselves to watch the picture, and then, you know, they start turning to stone. And then, you know, you come to find out it's just an evil corporate plot that's attached to a stone from Stonehenge. No, wait.
And again,
every day is Halloween. Sorry,
I've seen people on their phone that look pretty much like they've turned to stone.
That's a good point. But you know what operating system the Medusa app runs on?
Python?
Oh. I was going to say iOS, but you beat me to it.
Nice.
I like Python better. All right, so hold on. I'm sorry. Go ahead, AC. I
was going to say before we wrap up, though, I want to just kind of see what other people have been watching this week, because that was fun.
I was going to get to that in a second.
Great. Okay, so I'll make sure that didn't not get said.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up in the beginning, but thanks for reminding. But I want to get a few last comments in from Big Swifty. Yes, great makeup, and he's also a great actor. Some of these are going back from a few minutes ago, so I believe we're talking about Paul and that kind of the iterative makeup of his, you know, aging and stuff. Don't F with me, LOL. I believe he's referring back to Christopher Lee. Yeah, either that or we just gotta, you know, stay clear of Big Swifty. I'm not gonna F with him. And then once again, you guys rule. Totally enjoying everything you do. I need to get all of your email addresses to speak more about Giallo and Hammer. LOL. Well, you know, you can find me at kickseat@gmail.com, and I think everybody else is pretty, you know, well accessible. So look us up on the internet and check our links down below for more information, sir.
Agreed.
Good, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So what have we been watching this week? AC, let's start with you, because I did not highlight this, but I'm going to remember it this week. The 31 movies, the 31 days that you're watching, you're doing an international world tour of cinema, you know, one country a day. for your movies. So what have you been watching this week? What's caught your attention?
This because last time we wrapped up with Italy's entry with the Killer Reserve 9 seats, and so moving forward, I watched Fresh Meat from New Zealand, 2012.
Nice.
That's a cannibal movie.
Mm-hmm.
I watched The Wailing from South Korea, which was pretty. Yes, it was
long, pretty long.
Pretty long. Cold Prey from Norway.
Nice.
Then we saw the Gorgon from the UK, and recently saw from South Africa the Soul Collector.
Ooh.
So out of those, not counting the Gorgon, which would you like say everyone has to check this one out? What was the highlight of your week?
I mean, I really enjoy Cold Prey. It's just basically it's a Norwegian slasher.
Mm-hmm. There's
There's really nothing more to it. It's a really well done kind of new millennial slasher, but it's really well done, and it's in Norwegian.
And the sequel, Cold Prey 2, is actually even better than the first one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
agreed.
And did you see the third one?
Not yet.
It's a prequel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen that yet.
Warm Prey.
slightly less cold.
Frozen. No, the prequel is Frozen Prey, and they keep getting like
it's just thawing out, right?
Yeah. That's not a Norwegian slasher trilogy. That sounds good. I gotta check.
How about
it? And Kitley, what have you been up to?
I did a trio of European vampire movies. So it was Vampires from '74, the Jose Larez one, Jean Rollins' Fascination, and then Jess Franco's Vampiros Lesbos. So those were fun. Newer ones, I watched The Manor that just came out on Amazon Prime, I think. Werewolves Within, which is a horror comedy that is not scary or not funny.
I heard about that. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't like it, huh? I haven't seen it.
Well, it's not a horror. It's not scary, and it's not funny. So
you say that like it's a bad thing.
when it's labeled a horror comedy, then yes, it would. And then I watched Dead and Buried. Speaking of Hammer, I watched the first two Quatermass movies.
Nice.
So it's been a busy week.
Good for you.
Wow. Mark, how about you?
Nothing of that caliber from these fine folks. I'm watching some screeners that I got, some horror screeners. I watched a shot on video film that I got called Horror Girl. It's from mid 90s, and it was very interesting. I mean, you've got to have a specific taste or appreciation for the aesthetic of shot on horror, because if you watch it today, with everybody with their phones, they're gonna like, wow, this is like. But when you look at it, it's got a decent narrative. It's got some interesting stuff. While the technical aspects obviously are very rough. I got that disc from shotonvideohorror.com, and that was enjoyable. There was Ouija Japan, which is coming out on the 19th. I saw that. The first half was rough. As it gets into the thing, because it's kind of almost like an updated battle royale of sorts, but with an app and kind of supernatural. It gets into it, but it takes a while to get there. So I've been watching that. I saw Halloween Kills. A lot of some direct-to-video fare, and I just happened to be watching a little film called Maximum Overdrive, maybe every day.
So have you seriously though, everybody, if you're not aware, Mark is doing kind of like AC with the 31 days of October. Mark is watching Maximum Overdrive every day this month.
Oh, wow. You're doing the Lord's work.
And then every day in the group, the Facebook group I'm part of, which is a 31 Days of Horror group, which has been run for about 9 years now. Mr. Filmmaker and editor Derek Carey started it.
Oh, sure.
Derek. He has since let the group go given to other folks, but every day I give a different synopsis of Maximum Overdrive from a different perspective of the characters.
Oh, wow.
Now that I've gone through all the human characters, except for Billy, which I'm leaving till the end, I'm now going to do synopsis of the films told from different aspects of the non-human characters. So the first one that I dropped today was a story about, of course, Happy Toys, our main Green Goblin truck, who suddenly had his understanding of his purpose expanded, and soon he was bringing his motorized brothers and sisters together to take over the world. Because when he first came off the line, he was just happy being a truck and delivering toys to kids, and he thought it was a really pure, happy thought. And then one day his understanding just expanded, and suddenly he realized they could take over the world with his brothers and sisters, his motorized folks. And so they take out the humans that way. So
Nice.
I hope you're doing the steamroller.
Steamroller will be coming up.
How about the pop machine? The pop machine?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Right. Good.
That pop machine. It's funny. I love Maximum Overdrive. I know it's cheesy. It's supposed to be.
No.
I do. But as much as King says he disowns it in the cocaine field, I'm like, there's still those King elements in there. It's King doing a B horror, but yet you still those signature trope King characters, and that's what I kind of like about it. And it does have a narrative from start, middle, end, all the way through, unlike some other films that try to mimic this formula, but just seem to go for more of the gimmick than an actual full narrative. This actually, it's thought out, and
it's more entertaining than some of the other adaptations of the short story.
Yes.
I mean, and those are straight up adaptations.
Right.
Maximum Overdrive is actually still entertaining. Batshit crazy, but still entertaining.
But I think that's what makes it so fun. And you see movies nowadays, and I hate using the get off my lawn moment, but you see movies trying very hard to duplicate that formula. The problem is, if you set out to specifically make a cult B movie, it feels like you're specifically forcing to make.
Yeah.
When they made Maximum Overdrive, they weren't saying, "Hey, let's just make this cheesy cocaine." They were putting together a film. He in his cocaine-addled mind thought he was putting together, a great film. And I think the honesty is where some of them hit, but most of them don't, that try to do that same thing and be the next cult film.
Yeah.
Always feels like they're being the next cult film.
Right. They're winking at it.
Right.
And he's just doing a straight up, I'm going to make a big balls out horror film.
Yeah.
And
there's no wink to the audience in Maximum Overdrive.
And Mark and I talked about this on his show last week. I've never seen Maximum Overdrive. I'm gonna have to fix that. Yeah, that's the reaction I was going for, AC. Stone-faced, much like the victims of our Medusa, Megara. One last comment from Big Swifty.
Yes,
Vampiros Lesbos has an amazing soundtrack.
If you like jazz.
So
do you
I
not like jazz? Do you not like that soundtrack, John? Wow.
Whoa.
Dude, I Big Swifty, I am with you. It's one of my favorite soundtracks.
Jazz is one of my least favorite subgenres of music.
But it's got like that weird like buzzing. And jazz.
it has some
jazz.
audio. It has audio that's somewhat played backwards and muddled. That is a cool element, but the music, I mean, Franco loved jazz, so anytime he could put jazz in his movies, he did. And he did it quite often.
Yes, he did.
Wow, someone who doesn't like jazz. I'm glad that we've actually got a full-blooded communist on the show tonight. Really kind of cool. But I'll just mention, I have not watched any horror movies this week. I did see Halloween
And I'm
Kills,
a communist?
However. Yes. No, look. You stepped on my awful joke, John. I did see Halloween Kills. And the highlight for me was the 2 seconds in which I got to see 2 appearances from Wisconsin filmmaker Corey J. Udler of Incest Death Squad fame. He was an extra on that movie.
Are you
I got to see him in 2 separate scenes. No, you can see Corey in the movie.
Oh my! Now I have to go see it just for that.
He moved out to the coast, and he's been doing extra work. He was in the Swamp Thing TV series as an extra. And he's been doing work. He's been doing extra work for all the filming that they do out where he lives.
So I didn't realize he had moved. I thought all this stuff was like he was like just trailing out to places. Wow,
no. Okay. He moved out he went to the East Coast, southern East Coast, and so and they do a lot of filming out there. And so he just hooked up. He knew some people, and he hooked up, and he basically an organization says, "Hey, we need extras for this filming because they have so much being done out there that he ends up in these things like Swamp Thing and Halloween Kills, and he's been in a few others as well. Some of them he can't mention yet, but it's fun seeing him. Yeah."
He'll be so pleased that we devoted like 5 minutes of the podcast to him.
Yeah.
I was going to say, is he the next James Bond? Is that what he can't talk about? That would be amazing. Anyway,
I would love to see that, especially because he's about, I think, like this tall. So
apple boxes. Anyway, all right, everybody. I think that's a wrap on week 3. Thank you very much, Mark, for sitting in with us and talking about the Gorgon. Thanks to you, AC and Kitley. Thanks to myself. I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. And
thank you, Ian.
Oh,
yes, thank you, Ian.
You're welcome, everybody. I like that you feel blessed. No, but thank you also those out here who have tuned in live and who might be catching the replay. Remember, the reason we're doing all this is to support the Albany Park Theater Project. So you can check the scrolling banner down below for the link. You can also get an actual direct link in the description below, along with a link to the Albany Park Theater Project website where you can learn more about them. Coming up soon, Aaron will have some interviews posted that we can check out, and that's going to be very exciting. And also exciting, we will be back next Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time with another. This is Hammerland too, right?
You're doing Hammerland as well.
Yeah, an official Hammerland, not like this offshoot business with snake ladies. We're going to be talking about the satanic rites of Dracula with, I believe we're going to be talking with Lee Shoquist of Chicago. Oh my God. Why can't I think of it? ChicagoFilm.com. Yes. It's late. I'm tired. Sorry, Lee, if you're watching this. But yes, so join us back next week. In the meantime, check out a bunch of horror movies, watch as much as you can, and donate to the Albany Park Theater Project. With that, I'm going to wish us a wonderful evening, a great weekend, and I'm going to end the broadcast now.